ever stopped to think about this, nor has any Jew that I'm aware of, certainly no Muslim. But you're now familiar with this, and I've illustrated it, haven't I, over and over again. This is all Peter ever says. And as we've said in the last class, it's the very thing Jews were forbidden to do, crucify people. So someone filled with hatred of Jews has written this material. I hate to say that. I'm very sad about that. I don't want to hurt any Christians' feelings. I know they have the most decent, they care very much. They are the most deeply feeling people that I know. They mean no harm to anyone, most people, but they are just unaware that someone has written material of this kind full of hatred for Jews, not for anyone else. It doesn't hate Eskimos, and it's not hating Aborigines. Certainly not hating American Indians, blacks, or anyone else. It's just full of hatred of Jews. And therefore, the hatred of Jews in the Western world is totally not surprising. And nobody will come to grips with it. Nobody ever will. The whole Middle East situation is still revolving around it. It's all so sad, and our own time, what we've gone through with the killing of 1 million children in gas chambers is so frightening. And you say, what's the reason for it? There must be something wrong with the Jews. No, there's something wrong with people who have been infected with this with this kind of thinking. And it's not their fault, and it's not Peter's fault, because I'm sure Peter never said one word like this. I know he didn't, from the bottom of my soul. And I know whatever Mel Gibson has to say in his reaffirmation of this kind of thing, these things do not happen in this way. It's very sad. But having heard they were cut to the heart and plotted to put them to death. So the crowd wants to kill the Christians again. So it's either the Jews persecuting Christ or the Jews persecuting the Christians, when the Christians are supposed to be the popular people among the crowd, as we just saw. And who's plotting then? The crowd? Or it's impossible to follow this narrative. There's no sensitivity to the different groups of people, the lower classes, the upper classes, the occupying powers, and so on. And a certain Pharisee named Gamaliel, thank God finally we get to Gamaliel, a teacher of the law, honored by the people, rose up in the Sanhedrin and commanded the apostles to be put out for a short while. And he says to the people in the Sanhedrin, look, men, Israelites. This again parallels the Pseudo-Clementines. As we know in the recognitions, as I read to you last time, Gamaliel is a secret Christian, supposedly, in the, I don't know if that's true either, in the recognitions, but the narratives are paralleling each other again in the mention. Both, the only Jew they know of by name basically is Gamaliel. And the only reason they know Gamaliel is why? Because Paul mentions him in his letters as being one of his teachers. That's the only reason they know of him, and so he comes into the narrative protecting Christians to some extent, or at least telling Israelites to be careful not to harm these people. And of course, what's wrong with the speech that he supposedly delivers? Well, the problem with the speech that he supposedly delivers is that there was no one with a tape recorder there at that time. And therefore, the speech he delivers is complete with the anachronism that we have previously pointed out. What's the anachronism? What's meant by an anachronism? When you have things chronologically out of whack. Now, the average person, if I go to Bulgaria and go into a church in Bulgaria and say, did you know that Gamaliel's speech in the book of Acts is chronologically inaccurate? They would look at me like I was from outer space. The average person who's involved in the practice of these matters is not interested that Gamaliel's speech is inaccurate and in fact is totally out of whack. And it's been lifted from someplace that we can tell you what the source is. But they should be, because they consider this material God-given. And, you know, if God gave these materials, then God is actually not giving them accurate materials. And it undermines the whole situation, unfortunately. And in fact, I would do, by the way, the same to rabbinic literature. Don't think I would just be hard on this literature. If I took the Talmud, I would do the same thing to it. I'd rip it to shreds. So you don't have to feel that I'm partial. And if I do, Ron knows, I do the same thing with the Koran.
Oh, yeah.
So it isn't that I just want accurate material. I don't care what the religion or present. I mean, the reason I don't rip Josephus too much, although I do, is that sometimes his material is quasi-accurate. In other words, we can see through the distortions of his material, but at least he's operating from a certain historical base. But when it's not even quasi-accurate, then in fact you want to point that out, and you're not going to be make people happy by doing that, because the general message, the general approach of the world is to shoot the messenger, as you know. The messenger of bad tidings. Yeah.
How much should we attribute to ancient historical, the way ancient history was written? I mean, how much does that play?
Well, this is, well, let's look at this in accuracy. This is not attributable or anything like that. This is just attributable to superficial reading of another source and just slapping it in here. This is just slapdash, poor editing, and really not even concerned. And part of the fictionalization of what we're having here. They don't have any idea if Gamaliel made a speech. They don't know what Gamaliel might have said. They don't even know if Gamaliel did this, but the narrative has demanded Gamaliel appear here, so something is put into his mouth. That is part of ancient historical writing, that you just put a speech in someone's mouth. Thucydides started that, and when he started inventing all the speeches that his heroes gave. So maybe Gamaliel did stand up at this point, I don't know, but it doesn't parallel what we have in the Pseudo-Clementines, and I don't honestly think, that the people in the 40s in Jerusalem were so worried about this community. It doesn't come through in Josephus that this is a serious issue that's bothering the people. The main thing that's bothering the people in the 40s is the severity of the Roman occupation, things like the famine, the fact that people are fleeing the Roman soldiers being brutal with the population, and Josephus is pro-Roman, he's still presenting this. The disputes between people on the coast, Greco-Hellenistic Roman citizens on the coast, the coastal cities, and Jews inland, the riots that are happening together, the arguments between Jews and Samaritans, rioting down by this place called Lydda, executions that occur there from Roman prosecutors who crucified people who were involved in this rioting, a Roman centurion in the temple